addressing these issues. There are large numbers of thousands of people now in Equatoria that are in arms, proving the point that they were there. And there are people now that are being contacted through this mapping of opinion by the African Union. So this issue, the Tolwal tie it to the issue of the monopolization of coercive force by the government. As if he were to really put a big blessing to the Weberian state that we have read about, that the government must use force that it has a right to use force. But I think in a situation like South Sudan, where we broke away from Sudan, where we have a lot of number of issues that we have to resolve first among ourselves. The state of South Sudan is the state that we all liberated. We fought for it and we got it. But there was a carryover of so many problems that we needed to address. Our own ethnic diversity, we have not been able to address it. And we are not the only one that has that problem. We see it in other African countries. But did we address these issues so that the kind of social contract that the national dialogue is talking about? Why is the national dialogue talking now about a social contract between the people of South Sudan and their government? It is because many things have been missing. We haven't discussed our problems. We haven't discussed what kind of country do we have. What rights do we have as citizens, as particular ethnic groups and as citizens of South Sudan? This failure, I believe, is just like when we took up arms against Khartoum, because we thought that we had grievances. So grievances cannot be resolved by using the theory that the state has the monopoly of power. You have to have a monopoly of power when there is harmony within the state itself. And now we have a state to protect. And all of us can now say, anybody who rebels in order to host a democratically, say, elected government, that one has to be handled in accordance with the law, with the Constitution. So I want to say that the argument the point raised by Dr. Lual simply as greedy politicians looking for jobs. They go to the bush and they come. I totally disagree that you are ignoring some of the realities of South Sudan we must address. And for us to achieve peace, we must sit and address each and every grievance. If you look at what the national dialogue is saying today, when you ask them what are the causes of this crisis, you are hearing what they are saying. They are talking out their minds, and you are hearing, and those are the causes of all these conflicts. And we must address them. If at all we have to be peaceful, we have to address those issues. Is it for me? You say 5 minutes, but I think Lowell talked to us for more than half an hour, and if we are to be discussing for him, how can we do it in 5 minutes? I think that is unfair also. That is unfair, because we can't come to be lectured to and then we don't respond, especially if you are called a discussant. A discussant might discuss. But, yeah, okay, I will. He will stop me when it is 5 minutes. Now, the issue of Riek Machar, which he raised, you know, the issue of Riek Machar is a citizen of this country, as he said. But all those things that had happened in this country, and particularly last July, when Riek Machar came back, there was the fighting here. And Riek Machar had to run until he was chased and crossed to the Congo border. Now, what we need to ask is, what were the cause of that fighting last July? Have we investigated? Have we made a national inquiry into really who are responsible for this? This has not been done. There was an attempt in the beginning to do it when the first incident happened at near Gudela. But that committee has never come up with a report, because we have to know, if it is Dr. Riego wanted to make it to a coup or to kill anybody or to do what, there should be an official report that is substantiated, that people can take. Now that you say, the African Union is saying, because this has been a sensitive issue, when they are asked, do you mean when you talk of estranged groups and inclusivity, do you mean Riek Machar is to participate? They say, the people shrink and say, no, but he can send some people from himself. That means he will be the one giving them the marching orders, what to come and say. And that means he is accepted, but also not accepted. So you should be, I think, and this is not about Dr. Lwal, because I saw his point, but the forum itself, the IGAD should be clear about this point, because it is what is causing fighting now in some areas of South Sudan. Because the wing of the IO that is here in Juba, which is not for Machar, they are the one fighting against the IO of Machar on the ground. And this is what is causing displacement and more death. So there should be a clear position of IGAD on that. Two armies, which Dr. Lola has talked about. I was one of the negotiators during the peace agreement and also played an important role in it, even the last minutes of the transitional security arrangements. Now the idea was that once these two forces have been fighting each other, they must be kept separate. And we discussed how long should they be kept separate before the integration. Not that they would remain permanently as two armies, no. It was that you keep them away, you separate them, and that is the meaning of cantonment, and put each in its own assembly area until a certain period ends, and then the process which is in the agreement, which is the SDSR, the Strategic Defense and Security Review, takes place, and you know how many are going to be in the army. That is when you really integrate them, and there was a timeline given for them that they would be integrated. So it was not per se two armies to coexist indefinitely. The unification of the SPLM, because you want to stop me before I say anything about the SPLM, but I should say something also about the unification of the SPLM. The SPLM, we have gone to so many countries for the unification of the SPLM. We started it in Ethiopia with the APDRF. We came to Kenya. We went to Tanzania with the CCM. We went to South Africa with the ANC. We came to Uganda with the NRM. Lastly, it is now Egypt, the Egyptian intelligence. This is the last. And of course, the agreement, the Arusha agreement is incorporated, and we came here to incorporate the three groups into the constitution of the SPLM, and this had been done. This had been done, and there is a matrix for implementation. What is left now is the matrix itself to operationalize the matrix by implementing it. This is what is left. But still, there are people who also, of course, even within the SPLM-IG, who are not for this reunification of the party, and they always push it to the back burner. And this is where we are. After we have made a full circle from Ethiopia to Egypt. I think that is where there is a problem. It is not anybody sabotaging it outside, within ourselves. It is within ourselves here. It is not the foreigners who are sabotaging the unity of the SPLM. We know that, yes, they are not happy. They think they don't want a monolithic and hegemonic party to come up, and maybe it will fill the political space and deprive others or coming. National dialogue, if I may say this. The national dialogue is really, as it moves on, together with the agreement, there are aspects now that are being handled by the national dialogue, which are really contained in say you look at chapter 6 of the agreement. This is the process for or parameters for the permanent constitution making. All the issues and the objectives that are put as the objectives of the national dialogue, which are at the three levels, the local, the regional, and the national level. Those arms will fit into the chapter 6 when you come to it. And that is what it will be complementary to what is being done in the agreement. Chapter 6 has not been touched yet, has never been touched. And you cannot talk of even going for elections when you have not made a new constitution, which is required by the agreement. Election will only happen if we have a new constitution. A rush election without a constitution, just as we are now, will actually bring more chaos into South Sudan. And therefore, the forum should be taken seriously. We have an agreement, then we continue to work on the constitution that the people want. And if you read what the summary of ideas that have been suggested, these are things that will go into the national constitution. There is also the 64 state, I agree with Roll that in the involvement of the 64 entities, yes, there is a problem, especially in controlling this cohesive power of the state. Because if the army, the police, and the others are multiplied by particular ethnic groups in exclusion of others, then it is a recipe for quarrel, for disagreements. And nobody will be happy, and no citizen will become a subject, and the rest are citizens, when his security is just controlled by his own countrymen that he doesn't trust. So it is important, I quite agree with him, with his presentation, that although it may not be an equal numbers, but at least to have a national armed force that we can all believe in, that this national armed force is protecting my country, that this is the police that is protecting my rights, my property, and my life. If you don't have that, then you don't have a national army. And I think this is our problem right now. We need to be addressed. So then coming to imposition, that nothing must be imposed. This will be my final point. You know, if you are able to solve your problems in your own house, no neighbors, no strangers would come to your house to intervene. In our case, there are wrong concepts, I believe, or even ignorance sometimes. We are a member of the United Nations. South Sudan is a member of the African Union. We are a member of the sub-region, IGAD. The crisis that we have, and you know how the ramifications of it, the very bitter ones that the world is talking about, that we are described as irresponsible leaders. Those facts, you know them, you can see them in the refugees, you can see them in the killings, you can see them in all those things. If you are a member of the United Nations, you know what the function of the Security Council is. When there is such a situation in a country, if it is determined by the Security Council that that situation in that particular country amounts to a threat to international peace and security, and this has been the content, this has never been missed by many of the UN Security Council resolutions on South Sudan. They have been characterizing our situation as a threat to international peace and security, from the first resolutions up to today. Come to the African Union. If you read Article 4 of the Constitutive Act of the African Union, they have a right also to come to a situation in any of its member states if the situation has gone out of hand in such a way that it becomes a problem to the member states. And in our problem here, we have sent refugees to all the neighboring states. Why would you think the African Union would come? And the Peace and Security Council protocol gives them the right, gives the African Union the right to come in, and that is being done through IGAD. That's why IGAD has been with us. Some people say that this is a foreign intervention and our country is being done so and things are being imposed. No. Since the war broke out in this country, we have not been able to stop it on our own, you see. And there has been no prospect for us to stop it, you see. And that is why I believe that it is wrong for anybody to think that the AU cannot come into our problem, the UN cannot come into our problem. They have to, because we are part of these international bodies and regional bodies. This is very, very important for people to know, rather than misinforming our people that there are people who want to take our country. No. If they want to help us resolve, we can even keep them out, by the way, if we do our own, if we sit and sort out our own problems by ourselves. Nobody will come. We are a sovereign nation. But sovereignty is not absolute when certain things happen inside a particular country. So there is no really, even in the current concept of international law, there's nothing like absolute sovereignty. Not even like with countries that are weak like ourselves. It's even worse. So this is what I want to add, and these are my comments on what I have heard my brother saying, talking about. So there is, let us not take it as an imposition. Even the forum here, we don't need it if we did not have these problems. We could have settled our own problems without a forum being established in Addis Ababa to take us to go and talk days and days. And when we don't agree, because we are actually known for not agreeing among ourselves. So I want to stop here and say that the ideas that have been generated through the forum, through the consultation by the forum, there are very brilliant ideas in them there. If we pick them up, we can even solve our problem alone, if we can build consensus. The agreement itself, why it is not implemented, why many provisions are not implemented, it's not because they are bad. Even our own fundamental documents like the Constitution, when you talk of rights and rights of the media and all this freedom of press and all that, those are guaranteed by our own constitutions and laws. But why are we not implementing them? Do we need people to come and tell us to implement our constitutions and our laws? It goes along those that we are not serious about our own things. Let me end here because I see you are worried about me. Thank you.
Shukran. Thank you very much. Protocol for Malta. Make some corrections. We are not 64, we are now 72. Nationalities and other correction, I'm not honorable. I would like to call myself comrade. Expectation, please no more Congo. South Sudan should not be an extension of Congo at Ashanam Shigidam. We need to revitalize. I'm very happy. Do not open check. Do not give open checks. The international community should not give open checks to elitist, political, and military oligarchs. I am included. At the expenses of South Sudanese masses represented by their traditional authority who are using South Sudan National Dialogue. For me, and I'm responsible for it, the so-called power sharing is looting sharing by the elitist, political and military oligarchs. The balance of forces was a sham, is creating a theater of war in South Sudan, and I'm very happy it is recognized. I like the position of the 10th February of the UN Security Council issue, the press statement that they made. I don't want to repeat it again. The existence of our uncles, the high-level revitalization forum is very necessary. In my culture, we call it Concord, and I think it has happened always. So when there is a problem, you bring in people to say Concord, friends have to come. Traditional authority leaders are very pleased with the allocation of giving them 5% for national dialogue. Lakin, they are expecting to have their own forum. They are the one who sent us to schools. And by the way, when I was sent to school because I was useless in the village. So they thought that when I get educated, I come back to them, and then they make me behave like South Sudanese. So we are spoiled. Thanks to Ebony Center, our partners, giving this intelligentsia, research, engagement, and doing analysis and participation. Okay, if we are respecting public participation in revitalization of the agreement, to me, I'm convinced of that this revitalization is being done correctly by the South Sudan National Dialogue. But the question now is how to revitalize. I have some points. We have to institutionalize. We have to show, we Africans, we have to show on the world, we have to show that we are part of. We have to institutionalize and explain the agreement we are doing it through national dialogue. All political parties, donor community, and transition government of national unity to discuss and to adopt the policy or something. Dr. Lwal has put the matrix. So Africa within South Sudan, epochal characteristics. And that means inclusivity of all these things we are mentioning. We should give it a chance. We should give it. We should be serious about it. We have to protect and guarantee. We have the regional deployment force. I'm seeing some element of them just moving from J1, Saba Arabat or Khamsa Arabat. So instead of doing what they are supposed to be to have been doing, I don't see them. Regional deployment forces should be on trunk roads and river transport to boost delivery of relief and commodities to markets. South Sudan National Dialogue has to support the traditional authorities, the people who sent us here to be educated. Actually, we were sent. And then Gina Maradna, Begina Barana, we came and decided to fight ourselves. We should go back to the people. And by the way, we go back to the people during elections. UNMIS, mission في ABA في South Sudan, لازم يعمل revitalization. Okay, question of there is a need for DDR, so that we beginning of the security sector reform, and we have to implement the South Sudan Defense Forces, whatever coming according to our constitution. There is Article 36(4) of our constitution is very clear. Please, in future, I hope that we have to do cash grant for resettlement of IDPs and refugees when they are coming back. This is revitalization. Regional government to constitute support to the agreement, and by not supporting the rebels. UNDP to support the government and the revitalization. And there is a new thing, establish a new mechanism of sustainable development goals, which is being done by Millennium Institute, and it is expected UNDP should help us use that. We have to encourage cross-border peace and reconciliation and revitalization, markets, economic and recovery, UNMIS to engage our Chamber of Commerce. We are being looted openly. You recognize the government of South Sudan, and then you don't recognize our business community. So the money are going out. There is something which came up. South Sudan is being loaned $10 million. The local seat was supposed to go through the chiefs. The local seats and the CDFs by the elites is supposed to be implemented through the COTAL, Council of Traditional Authority Leaders, which is in our constitution. Procurement and accountability must be done professionally. protocols of protection of civilians, neutralization of negative forces. I'm not talking, even myself, if I take the army with our government to Jebel Lado, I should be neutralized. Or if I'm allowed to go to Jebel Lado and come tomorrow, then I'm giving the power sharing or looting sharing, I can't do it. Okay? They send the embassies and the diplomat missions have to continue doing press release, and it is very important. What is being done by the Swiss, the USA, Rift Valley Institute, and Germany, when they have developed interest in supporting the traditional authority, this is very encouraging, connecting, and actually we have our own governance. We have our governance. I think the international community, you have kings and queens and emperor. These are traditional authority leaders in their countries. Why are you ignoring our traditional authority leaders? We have our way of governing. And there is no police. When I did my master's, I'm not yet spoiled. I don't have PhD. So when to claim, but when I went to study in Southern Africa region, I saw that there is no government. There is no government everywhere. Even if you go to New York today, you get the police are limited to a special place. So there are values and there are traditions that people are taking care of. So we need to be inclusive. Inclusiveness should mean that every entity viewpoints is included, and we have to do peaceful dialogue. By the way, I was playing basketball. Then I dropped it, and I started using guns. And then I dropped it, and then I thought I go for dialogue, peaceful dialogue, negotiation. I can go back to pick the gun. No. We have to go for peaceful dialogue. So if I don't do it, and then you cannot just sit there and you say you are causing insecurity when that, and then you beg me, insure. I cannot insure because it is business. It is business when I have gun and loot. So enforcement of a cessation of hostilities. It is not insure. Our president and presidency and the leadership and even the opposition should be allowed to move in South Sudan, not to come to Juba. They could be helped to go and give their views why they did what they are doing. There should be monthly, quarterly PDF like this. I like it. I'm learning a lot from it. Opportunity should be given also to civic education, civic movement, and we all go on it. Of course, I'm representing SPLM, I'm representing Comrade Nuno, but other political parties also should be given. So you can see this forum is even dominated by former detainees from SPLM, SPLM-IO, SPLM International, SPLM G, SPLM F, but other political parties are not here. This is not what we're fighting for. I'm a freedom fighter, and it is not my first time to be in a party. So I'm in SPLM by choice. So I think I'm in SPLM by choice, and I like to be in SPLM until today, but I can anytime become any other political party. So this place should increase. So we are going for multi-party democracy. I think my time is still there. Executive councils and council of ministers, within political parties, we have realized that actually there is disconnectivity, institutional disconnectivity, and we should be accountable. So I'm talking about how to revitalize. People should be seen of doing the schedule that we have agreed, and this has to come through something like that. Also, we have to respect the church, the mosque, and all other elements, so that we have the timetable for us to when we have the revitalization. It should be written, it should be agreed, it should be discussed, and we all go for it. And I think I'm not ready to rebel again. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much, Professor George. Professor George seemed to be struggling with some of these Nilotic names. That is not a problem. I will do that myself. My name is Agel Ring Machar. I'm the official spokesperson for the SPLM-IO here in Juba under Comrade Taban Dengai. I also double as the press secretary or the spokesperson in the office of the first vice president. So I speak for General Taban both in the party and in the transitional government of national unity. I'm SPLM, the so-called biological child of SPLM, or the Red Army, the custodians of the mission and vision and so forth. And I'm a member of different forums, including the South Sudan Young Leaders Forum, led by Comrade Peter Birajak and Comrade Molana Bangidan Mabur. So I think that introduction is enough. Professor George, you won't have to worry about me. Mine will be very short. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Luala Chwek and the Ebony Center for organizing this event. Subsequently, I also like to thank the federal government of Switzerland through its Foreign Affairs Ministry for supporting this event. This document, for me, is almost past 100%, and I will submit it to the leadership of the SPLM-IO for more deliberation so that it informed our decision as we proceed to support these three initiatives: the National Dialogue, the SPLM reunification, and the revitalization of ARCIS. So it's a very good document. Of course, when he was presenting, as he was explaining, he got carried away. Some of those things are not in this, but anything that's written here, we accept it and we appreciate it. The things to do with the road being taken from where to where, those things, as long as they're not written here, they are his own responsibility. But this document is a very good document, and it will be part of our decision making. So thank you very much. For us, those three policies that the government of South Sudan is engaging, we agree with the Ebony Center that national dialogue get the precedence for us for many reasons. One being homegrown initiative by the people of South Sudan, for the people of South Sudan. Number two, it just doesn't concentrate on the elites alone. It gives a chance for other groups in the society at different level, national, regional, and at the grassroots, to be able to say their views about why they are killing each other. It is not the division within the SPLM that is now making the fight between the Kok and Agar people who are currently fighting as we speak. It is not because the SPLM divided themselves or because we disagreed on what sort of mode of voting, whether it is show of hand or secret ballots. That is not why the Murle attacked Duk last month and killed over 70 women and children. There must be something else going on. A national dialogue gives a chance to these people at the grassroots level to be asked, what is your problem? So that we also inform ourselves and we find out what is the solution and how do we chart a way forward. So we give a lot of emphasis to the national dialogue, but of course we also welcome other initiatives, whether done by our friends in the region, continentally or internationally. Number two is the SPLM reunification. The process, as explained by my colleague, my elder politician, John Luke, it went around, and now on 11th to 13th this month, we are heading back to Entebbe so that we can try and fast forward the implementation of these or operationalization of this agreement. He is a member of the delegation. I'm also a member of the delegation, so we'll meet again in Entebbe in 2 days, or we'll probably leave tomorrow. The SPLM unification is a very good document. From the preamble, if you read it, you will realize from the beginning, especially the admission by the leadership, all of them, that we have lost direction and we have lost vision of what we are fighting for from the beginning. from the chairman, Salfa, to all his deputies, and everybody in the leadership accepted collective responsibility of having lost direction. That's why the country is. So it's a good document, and went in to try and democratize the party so that the party can then go ahead and democratize the country. And those have been incorporated in the constitution, as also John Luke said. And my problem is I'm wondering what my friends in the group, the so-called former detainees, are still doing around the world instead of getting serious with this document and get back into the country so that we unify the SPLM and try to bring the country closer to peace and stability. Comrade John Luke and Comrade Deng Alor are cabinet ministers, and the leader of the group, Comrade Pagana Mom, who is the sworn-in Secretary General, Halien, who has not resigned and has not been fired. And that's why Jema Nunu Kumba is acting Secretary General. You can see in the list there. It's because the Secretary General is Comrade Pagana Mom, who I heard has been writing documents to the tune of handing over country to some sort of UN or hybrid something that I don't understand fully. I'm wondering, as we go to Entebbe, why don't we decide that the former detainees try and make their views so that we can get to understand where they stand. Do they want to unify the party and come back to the country? Because some of them cannot be at risk and some of them are here and they are one party. Whatever puts Pagana Mom in risk should also put Deng Alor in risk. And I've seen Deng Alor driving around here with one bodyguard and driver, and only him, even in the evening, past 6, 7, 8 o'clock, and he's going alone. So I don't buy this idea that somebody is insecure here or anything like that. Of course, I cannot say that for my former chairman, Dr. Riek Machar. I cannot guarantee that. But for the former detainees, somebody else can guarantee the president, but for me, I cannot do that. I don't have the ability to do that. But I can see by evidence that former detainees are safe here. I can see it myself. Not that I'm the one who is protecting them, no. But I can see that they are safe here, and therefore they should all come in so that we can unify the party. And those that don't want to unify the party become clear as well, so that those positions remain vacant, and we proceed to the convention, and those positions are then filled by the National Convention or the membership of the party. Because we, the young generation, Taban, you like to call us young in South Sudan, I'm 38 years old. I don't call myself young, but if I don't call myself young, I will not be understood. In Europe, in what is the country? Austria, the head of government is 31 or 32 years old. So the SPLM vision and mission was written down in 1983 by a 37-year-old, 38-year-old Dr. John Garang in 1983. So at the age where we are not young. And so we want this party to be unified so that we identify what the problem is. Is it the fact that the constitution was not democratic enough? Or is it that the leaders themselves have given all they could throughout the 21 years of struggle and now have nothing else to give but to retire and give the young generation with energy a chance to take the country to the next level? We need to find out that quickly, and we have no chance to find out when we are all over the place. With Comrade Pagana Mom in New York wanting to hand over the country that he liberated over to UN, and Comrade Deng Alor as foreign minister here. So we kind of get confused with the biological children of SPLM. Also adopted children also, we are also concerned. The newcomers who have just surrounded Comrade Chairman. These days we don't even see our chairman anymore, but all of us, we are concerned as young generation. The other initiative is the RCs, which we as SPLM-IO are signatory to before we had the July crisis. And we had reservation. The two main warring parties had reservation on the agreement. We never liked it from the beginning. We gave a long list of reservation. I think we gave 22. I don't know what the government gave, 20, around the same reservation. Each one, of course, not the same. Some are the same. But it was imposed on us. IGAD said, we know better. You guys are failures. You don't know what you're doing for your country. Your people are suffering under you. We care about your people more than you do. And therefore, sign this thing now or you get it. In Addis, on 17th of August 2015, After 48 hours of sleepless nights, we converge, we gather energy, and we push former chairman, Dr. Yak, to sign. President Salva had more difficulties. He had to ask for 2 more weeks. He came back to the country under intense pressure. He signed with dozen of reservation, and we went in. So we accepted that. We accepted what the IGAD said, that the agreement is good, and we came in, and we saw what has happened. If they have now realized that that agreement was not good in the first place, and they want us to go back to Addis to go and make it better, the SPLM-IO under Comrade Taban is committed to that process. We will go back. We will give our views. They are ready. Hopefully they will be heard this time, and there will be no dictating the outcome of the forum. There will be no these experts who come with these theories that have not been tested anywhere, and they want to imply them in South Sudan. Hopefully they will listen to us, and if they do, we will see. Hopefully we will not be forced again to have an agreement that will come and finally disintegrate the country completely. The agreement itself, revitalization, yes, we are committed to, but RCS itself, the way it is, we are also for it. So hopefully we will get to be able to revitalize the 2 chapters that have been affected the most, Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, which is the power sharing and the security arrangements. And hopefully they will listen to us this time, so that we don't have, now that we have more people, if we continue with the same thinking of what is called the balance of forces, it will not be 2 forces fighting this time. There probably will be 7 different forces made up of different tribes, which then blow up here in Juba, and it will look more nasty. So these 2 chapters have to be done, so that we can also go to Chapter 6, so that we can get rid of John Luke Constitution and establish a proper constitution. Yes, the one that concentrated so much power on the hand of one person. And when we were debating this, one of the people said, in our Dinka, Salfa Joy Yurial, Salfa Rampiat. In other words, Salfa is a very good person, is a very gentle person, and don't worry, even if he's given too much power, he's not going to do anything with them. Okay, so we have seen now what they have done with them, and now we are eager to go back and fix this constitution, so that the constitution is representative of everybody. It is clear, even he admitted that it is called John Luke Constitution. He was the Minister of Legal Affairs, and is the one who drafted the constitution. It has been dubbed the John Luke Constitution. So we want South Sudan Constitution, not a constitution that put, so that we can go to a free and fair election. The people of South Sudan choose their leadership, and we move forward. So that's what I would like to add to this. On something that was raised about the fact that the forces of Gerald Taban, Dengai, SPLM-IO are the one causing a lot of displacement and so forth. We are there to the ceasefire that was declared by the President of the Republic. Of course, we are in partnership with IG, and we are in one government. And if the President says ceasefire, we accept the ceasefire. But of course, he's a soldier, and he understands when you are in your trench, ceasefire means do not advance, but if you are attacked, you must defend yourself. So the problem is, as Dr. Luala Chwek said, is that the other side does not want to do the same. So it is not the SPLM-IO that I speak for. The orders are very clear from the CNC, Gerald Taban, to the SPLM-IO, is that together with the government forces, stay in your places and do not make any advances. But if you are attacked and provoked on a daily basis, thank you very much. I will conclude here that the SPLM-IO under Comrade Taban is committed to all these 3 processes: the national dialogue, the SPLM reunification, and the RCS itself, and the revitalization of RCS. And we are going to go with open mind, and we are ready for compromises. And we have proven that before, that we have compromised, and anything that will bring peace and stability to the people of South Sudan, this organization under Comrade Taban is ready for it. We know that Comrade Taban now is working with President Salva in partnership, but in 2013 they were fighting. So we have proven that we can compromise with people who are fighting for the benefit for the people of South Sudan. And that is the spirit we will take to all this, to Entebbe, to Addis, or to Freedom Hall, where the national dialogue is headed. Thank you very much.
When we come to this forum, and this is a tradition, we avoid ad hominem attacks. We talk about issues that can help this country. We are not coming here to sell our party agenda. We have to be respectful of people. Don't call anybody names. You don't come to blame and do anything else. Address the issue. And I will appreciate it of all of us here. If you want to fight, there are still people doing it in the bush. If you're angry, you don't come here. When you talk under anger and hate, you'll not be constructive, and we have more crises. So individual attacks and selling your party platform is not allowed here. We want rational intervention to issues and contribute effectively, regardless of your feeling about what you think about the situation. So, gentlemen, shall we give the young men another clap? With that, we have come to our discussion. Now the time is for you. You have been listening patiently to what good things or bad things we have said. Now for you to contribute your own. The ambassador, the AU rep had asked a couple of questions that needs to be answered later on. But before we do this, there is a young, is it middle son generation? Sunrise? The people who are sending Lual to Sunset says he's going and he wants to very quickly intervene. Ladies and gentlemen, our time is out.
Because we met with him several times to emphasize that and to push on President Konare to be in the driving seat, because IGAD, as a regional entity, has been unable to get the member state to support the IGAD agenda. And because of that, we have been suffering. We've seen this problem going on in many places, but of course, we have seen that conflict provide resources, and some of these regional countries, they are roaming in our territory. Who knows what they are doing? So we have raised this issue. It's not been addressed. But I think for now, since we're stuck with IGAD, let's move forward. But I just have only 3 messages for some of our colleagues. It's good we have people from the government, from the IO, and the FDs here. Now that this process is beginning, and of course we're stuck with IGAD, I think we have to make the best of it. But the 3 points that I have for you is, number 1, the context has changed. This is not 2014, 2015 negotiations. This is entirely different context. So it's very important that you approach this. The economic situation has worsened. Military has not been paid for 5 months. The rest of us have not been paid for God knows how long. The situation is so desperate. The fragmentation has continued even more. People are suffering. So it's important that you understand that this situation is entirely different. Second, what makes it different is the people of South Sudan are doing things that they have never done before. For example, organizing themselves. We have been doing it in the youth. The women are doing it. Dr. Pauline is wearing a t-shirt there that says, South Sudanese women want peace now. So it's no longer your monopoly of politics, where the SPLM just run around and tell people this is what we are going to do. People have also woken up. The narratives that have been sold to them, oh, there's a coup, tribal conflict, and whatever, this has changed. This last month we did a meeting here where we invited members of Red Army, some of the youth from Equatoria, and some of the people from the POCs. And guess what? They realized all of them have the same thing in common. You know? So it's entirely different situations. This means that you people have to change your approach. The people are now more able to analyze, they're able to organize, they have greater access. The same people you meet through your diplomatic channels, we are able to meet them. We are able to mobilize along all the different parts of South Sudan, whether within the government control areas, within the IO control areas, within the diaspora, wherever we are organized. So my second message, be responsible. John Luke, you said it well. How can sensible men be fighting senseless war? And these are words that the president has used, Machar has used, Everybody, including the guys that are setting up rebellion now, they have used this word that this conflict is senseless. So why is 4 million people displaced? Why are we starving? Why is our economy destroyed if the war is senseless? Simply so that the few of you can have access to power? Is that a good justification for you? Do you accept that this is a worthy cause? I'm telling you, all these red lines that politicians give out, if somebody's position is touched, or this one, red line, those red lines need to be removed. The only red line is the conflict must end, right? And I hope you really understand this, because this is very, very, very important. Number two, we want you to be honest in your analysis and in your, I'm almost finished, it's 3 points, this is the second point. We want you to be honest in your analysis and your proposal. It's very, very, very important, and show that you have that patriotism. Some of you that we used to know in the bush, what has happened to you? Huh? We want this to be different. We in South Sudan Young Leaders Forum has done an analysis of all of these processes. We sent a document out called the SSYLF Agenda for the Nation. Read it. It has some ideas that may contribute to your own ideas. But the point that I'm trying to make to all of you is that let's end this conflict. Second, we cannot have elections between now and the end of the interim period. And we also know that there must be change. Ya Jama. The government completely lacks credibility. The state, South Sudan as a country, is now losing credibility. We as a people are losing respect and dignity. So no matter what, whether it is position you want to protect or whatever, there must be change. Because we can no longer continue to accept the reality that has been created. And we know we have the power, because now we have realized by organizing, people are already shaken. Here in Juba for the last 2 weeks, people have been talking about SSYLF, that we are taking over the government. Yes, because we are organized. And as organized people, we have power, and we are able to tell you what to do. So my point is, be responsible and let's end the war.
Okay, I have only one point to make. But first, my appreciation to Dr. Lowell for his presentation, and also my appreciation to the center for staging this workshop or discourse. My intervention relates to security arrangement. Point number one in the critical steps to be taken refers to sustainable cessation of hostilities. Somewhere else also we speak of permanent ceasefire. These are critical first steps towards proper security arrangement. I am addressing my remarks to the leadership of the Republic of South Sudan, to IGAD, to AU, and all those who love South Sudan and want to see a prosperous, stable South Sudan. I also take it as my starting point that this is a serious discourse whose outcome, the output from here, will eventually or must be reflected in the forthcoming revitalization forum. South Sudan, before the CPA, with all its protocols, including the security arrangement, had a similar experience during the ending of the 17 Years' War, what is now referred to as Anyanya 1. In the security arrangement relating to the ending of the Anyanya 1 war in 72 was very clear and very specific, and it paved the way for smooth implementation of the security arrangement, which unfortunately this time around, during the SPA security sector arrangement, did not benefit from, and which also the August 2015 arrangement did not benefit from. But what happened during the Anyanya 1 settlement? Whatever the size of the Anyanya forces out there, it was clearly agreed that only 12,000 would be taken on board. 6,000 into the army, and another 6,000 to the police, prison, you name it. Very clearly. The message went very clearly. The others were to go wherever they came from. Clearly understood, and that kind of arrangement went very smoothly. Come to the CPA arrangement. What happened? In addition to the SPLM proper, you got on board Clement Wane forces, Olino Mati forces, Ismail Konyi forces, Abdalbaki Ayi forces, you name it, only to be reinforced later on by David Yao forces, somebody called Bapinyi forces, all on board. What are these people going to do? No mention was made regarding or referring to actually how many forces did they have. What is the result? Everybody has ended up there, thanks to the absence of a proper pension scheme. I hope we're not going to make the same mistake this time around in terms of talking about security sector reform or security sector arrangement reflecting 64, 72, 62 communities without doing something about those who are already there. Throughout the interim period, South Sudan and the international community were not able to handle this issue of DDR. The DDR issue remained a serious bottleneck up to today. The original SPLM forces were not known in terms of size or numbers. Those who came on board were not known, compounded by weak institutions, in particular, the public sector recruitment laws or regulations or procedures. No pension scheme. You have the ingredient or the formula for another upheaval or another problem. This time round, my appeal is let us learn from those. There should be specific references. The 12,000 forces that were to be taken on board to organize forces during the Anyanya 1 were not just taken out of the blue. There was a specific reference to what the size, the overall size of the Sudan Armed Forces was to be, relating to the resources available, relating to the perceived threats, and relating to the size of the population. When South Sudan was, the southern region of that time, was given 12,000, it also reflected something. So this time round, as we expect, Thomas Cirillo, Peter Gadet, you name it, to come on board with their own forces after they come on board through a ceasefire, through sustainable cessation of hostilities. After they have come in, what do you do on top of whoever is already there? What next? So I'm just here saying that it should not be left as something to be done tomorrow. Let the absolute size, taking other factors into account, perceived threats, resources, whatever it is, let it be clearly defined and determined in the negotiation during the forum, rather than leaving it to another day. This is my input for this serious issue. It is a serious issue. We do not want, again, to find ourselves running around looking for funds for a DDR that is going to be completely a bottleneck or another driver for another round of problems. Thank you very much.
We're going to be able to organize this forum, or this discourse rather. Now on the presentation, thank you very much, Dr. Lual. you have raised different perspectives, but with solid, concrete proposals on how we can go about them. And I am thankful for the examples you gave. What I want to say here is that really governments rule by systems, organizations, resources, be them human, finances, or technological. Now, what we have seen with the agreement on the resolution of conflict is the lack of the government using that kind of tools that would allow them to rule. And the writing was on the wall. The minute they said the agreement term is 30 months, and you look at the provisions and what they are supposed to achieve within 30 months, and you know the shortcomings and the strengths of the situation in Juba, you would say that 30 months would not begin to cut it so that we meet the terms of the agreement. I wish somebody from the government was here. It is true, I see Honorable John Luke, I don't, lessen or cheapen his contribution, but he spoke as former detainees. And we saw a member of the IO, the spokesperson actually. Somebody should have been here from the government to tell us what happened. Now, what I want to say that if you rule by systems, organizations, and resources, you don't subject yourself to trendy things, because these trendy things do make you deviate, procrastinate, or even derail your plans and objectives. And that is exactly what happened. The minute we came on board to implement the agreement on the resolution, many voices started talking about the fact that it is not inclusive, that the agreement, and that was in June last year, 6 or 7 months ago, that the agreement needs revitalization. Actually, it is not the agreement that needed revitalization. It was the government tools that needed strengthening. We know that there is a humble pool in Juba, humble pool, and I keep repeating this everywhere I speak. We talk about lack of capacity, weak institutions, but the fact is that it is very humble even at that level. If you look at our cadre at the different ministries, very few, the ministers, the undersecretaries would attest to that. In a ministry you will find that you have maybe 400, maybe 500 of cadre, but not all of them are capable to help you when you want to pull the strings together to achieve or to implement. And I think that is the crux of the matter regarding the agreement on the resolution. So you don't need another agreement. IGAD has gone ahead of itself by talking about a revitalization agreement, not only that, superseding the agreement on the resolution and our constitution. It may sound like a term of art, but with very serious legal constitutional implications. And we have to be very careful. Those who have accepted, the spokesman said that IO has accepted revitalization. I have seen our Vice President, Dr. Iga, more than 3 times supporting the revitalization process. It is not about the generalities. The devil is in the details. If it is going to lead to another agreement, I don't think we should accept. We should strengthen the tools by which we implement the agreement on the resolution. It is really comprehensive. You saw how many chapters. It covers everything from the point of where they quarreled over the powers and the seats, to the reforms for the security sector, reforms of the civil service, and so on and so forth, humanitarian, economic management of our resources. It is comprehensive. Let us strengthen it. And remember, this agreement has procedure for amendment. It has procedure for amendment. So why the new agreement? Agree on strengthening it and then apply the provisions on the amendment. I think with that, the only thing left, if you amend the agreement on the resolution so that you can implement it, you are left with three things: to prepare the country for elections and to think about the constitutional making process. You cannot do it first. Remember, the Sudan government had a provisional constitution from 1956 until 73 when Mary called a constituent assembly to adopt a permanent constitution. And it happened because the only objective of that constituent assembly was to adopt a constitution. So I think we have, in the political history of this territory, we have models that we can use. But the last thing you want is for IGAD to go about and create an additional level of layer on our constitutional situation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
But Dr. Lual is a very open-minded person. He challenged me that if you don't come, you will miss a lot. So that challenge brought me here. So a philosopher called Peter Ross told the people that you tell people in power that something they tried didn't work as expected. That's one he said. Tell them, those in power, that something didn't work as expected. People in power, tell them like that. Two, another philosopher called Edmond Bourke, he said, a state without the means of some change is without the means of conservation. And that is the situation we are in South Sudan. It is a state without capability of change, and we are threatened whether we will conserve this for all long up to now. So we need to be very careful on this. Now, as we talk of revitalization, Dr. Lual made a lot of political blunders in his presentation. Political blunders. And I excuse him because he is an economist. If he was a politician or a legal expert, I wouldn't have compromised, but let it go. Now, what is it that is so attractive? What is it that is so attractive in the army in South Sudan or armed forces, in the political parties of South Sudan, especially the SPLM, and in the government of South Sudan, that people don't want to leave it, let it go, so that they practice their normal life? What is it that is so attractive there? We need to find out. Second, is it bad to impose a peace agreement to a country that has messed up itself? Is it a bad idea to impose a peace on a country that has messed up itself to the extent that half of its population are in terrible situation? Do you blame somebody who imposed peace on you in that case? The last question. What is it that we have achieved in the axis, the agreement on the revitalization of the conflict in the Republic of South Sudan? What is it that we have achieved that we are proud of, that we can extend further? What is it? What is it that we have achieved in that revitalization that we should end now? And then we go and shop for other forums. What is it? For me, South Sudanese, especially these old leaders who have been trained in this military psychology, that they don't think that they cannot survive if they are out of power. They need to be told to retire, and they are told you can survive even when you are out of power. That need to be done. And if they need confidence, that we assure them we are ready to present them research, and we tell them this can be done. Please, Dr. Lwal and the rest who are there, including John Luke, who has messed up this country with his constitution, can you please just have a time that we, the youth, we come and sit with you, then we will tell you how you can survive out of power. Can you please? Thank you very much.
My name is Benny Gideon. I just have 2 points. One is to begin with a correction from Ambassador, the AU Ambassador to South Sudan. As far as I'm individually concerned, I have no information that he actually participated through proxy. But I know anytime from now, maybe tomorrow or next, he will receive his invitation, his personal invitation from IGAD. My 2 contributions are this one. I want to challenge Dr. Lwal that the concept note have terribly run short of the reason why we are supposed to be in this hall. It is supposed to be drafted in line, this concept note, or the purpose of our today's discussion, should have exactly been in line with the pre-consultation forum report, which is out. And I'm talking to South Sudanese political elites and academics. The pre-consultation, the IGAD pre-consultation report, we was approved by the IGAD Council of Ministers last week at the sideline of the Africa-European Union Summit in Ivory Coast, exactly presented a lot of options. It has presented 5 options, which have been categorized into 2 situations, and I thought that could be the reason why we focus our discussion today. One is to have a rotational presidency where each of the 3 regions elects or nominate the chief executive officer to sit in the council of the presidency or the presidential council that have equal powers and rotational after every year. The second option is to have a ceremonial president with executive prime minister and 2 deputies. And the same thing goes to the assembly. Whether the membership of the assembly, there are 3 options. Whether to maintain the 400, whether to reduce it, or whether to increase. I thought our discussion of today should focus on addressing the current reality that are going to be discussed. IGAD is sitting on the 15 and 16 this month in Addis Ababa, and all the parties, including government and other stakeholders, are going to be invited. So today's discussion is good. It's not a waste, as my colleague Okuk argued the other day. It's not a waste. The today production, the contribution that will be made today in this room, if it is timely and productive, it will help the next week discussion in IGAD. The second point that I want to raise is the question of the principle of subsidiarity. The Constitutive Act of the African Union provides the principle of subsidiarity that the regional IGAD, the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, which has the closest geographical proximity to South Sudan, is given that sole mandate to solve the problem of South Sudan. But we fail to ask, what if the principle of subsidiarity fails? What next? And that is where my colleague Peter Biar came in before, though he talked about it in the political framework. But I want to address it from the legal point of view that in the event that the principle of subsidiarity fails, then that principle of subsidiarity automatically shifts to a higher level. So the African Union, you need to be ready that the African Union, in the event that IGAD fails its subsidiarity, and this is the last opportunity for them, then that opportunity should be shifted to the African Union, and that should be a collective call. It should not be left to some of us and others. So I want our contribution to be in line with the pre-consultation forum, and I challenge all of you in this room to read the IGAD pre-consultation forum so that you can have effective contribution to the next week discussion at Addis Ababa. Thank you very much.
The professors have asked 5 questions. Fragility versus failed state. They are 2 faces of the same coin. Because South Sudan was born as a fragile state. And they started to do, and the 2 paradoxes they hold in place, because there was too much money. It's paradoxical because they have the money, but then again you have weak institutions. And that become a paradox, because if part of the fragility, usually lack of resources. But in this particular case, we have resources. And those who are now calling for the
UN trusteeship, that would have been the time they should have asked that from July 9th up to, not July 9th, but from January 9th when the results were announced, around the 12th, I think 15th of January 2011, up to end of the year, December 2011. And I believe Hilda Johnson was already here, I'm not sure, but if she was anonymous, that would have been the time of 6 months UN trusteeship to prepare, just like Namibia, we took them, they should have prepared the South. So that time it should have been done. So there's no, there's no contradiction there. Second, why do I talk of South Sudanese ownership, but at the same time ask for friends of South Sudan to come and help? Yeah, I'm asking you, you the friends of South Sudan, not to come and drive my car, but I want you to sit behind and direct me where if I miss the road. But what you are doing, you are driving my car, you are checking your road, and I'm just a passenger. You should be my passenger, and I'm the one driving. Third, geopolitics do affect, and I think this one of the comments, I believe, which was saying that I think it is Peter Biar, who was saying, I think it is time for the IGAD, because the IGAD are mostly neighboring countries. So there's conflict of interest. Why don't you sit back and then allow the African Union to take the lead? And he did mention Professor Alpha Konari, who is also the special envoy of the African Union to South Sudan, to be the one to take the lead. In doing this, I tend to prescribe to that. Because Konari he has been a president before, he's too far from West Africa, he's not seeking any, and he has been the chairman of the African Union, I believe. Was he? Yeah. So he's not in a market for position. And he has a certain love for South Sudan. This is the person who should be given the lead. That was a suggestion from the young man. And I tend to agree. And while there, and also to answer my younger brother Cook, these things are not given over to you by, you have to take it, but take it peacefully. So during our time, we were active as young people, and we did not wait to be given. That's why John Garang managed to mobilize us, and we went to, when he was 36, 38 years old, and began to do those. What I want you, don't go to the forest, but talk here, and I like to cook because he has been subjected to all kinds of things, and he stays here. And he's trying his best. And I think and this is where I also see the government has built in this tolerance. So we can allow those who cook to say whatever they want. And actually the one who made blunder is not me. Because mine was more, I'm an economist. I want 5 steps to be done by the forum. Critical steps, which are measured. You talk of philosophy and all those things, they don't mean any. But we want practical things. Ceasefire is a practical thing. But there's no philosophy in it. So your number 5, you said, yes, Chatham House statement, I fully agree. That's why I quoted them. And I said, I tend to agree with what they were saying. And IGAD has to develop some thick skin to look at that. And number 5 is rightly you put it, South Sudanese scholars seem to suffer from ethnicity in their analysis, which is true, and we are trying to overcome that. But again, I take a responsibility, the elder South Sudanese analysts, including George Burang and some of our colleagues here, we have not done our duty enough to guide them, our scholars, to move beyond ethnicity. That it is time to, and as I said before, and I'm glad to have 2 of my bosses, because Agritisa is the chair of the DPF, and Dr. Salwa Jibril is the deputy chairperson of the board of directors. As I said, from now on, we and Gideon has challenged us, and I'm glad I thank our young man from the Red Army of the IO and the first vice president, yeah. And the first vice president knows me very well. From now on, Ebony Center and myself, we are going to be very active, pushing our views in this process. We are not going to sit back anymore. Enough is enough. And we are going to make sure for the government to implement the security sector reform, reflect our 64, because I tend to believe in this number. I got it from George Burang a long time ago. Actually, it's coming with a new thing. No, let me start with the 64. This 64, our government must reflect them in. We should not wait. And we are going to begin to write briefs. I see the Minister of Interior is already doing something. We will approach him to say, look, go beyond smart city. What is the name? I think this concept, smart city, which is Juba, but go out of Juba, go to other smart cities, make sure the police is a representative of the 64. We will do the same thing to the Minister of Defense. Those of us in the DPF and in the Ebony Center, it's our duty, and we are going to speak and begin to write. Our partners, friends, you better, and they say, by the way, in the Bible, God help those who help themselves. So if we don't move, friends will not support us, and God will not help us. And we are going to knock at the door of our friends. If you are real, a friend is need is a friend indeed. We are going to look for those things. And this intellectual poverty, which we have time to stop. And our duty to make sure University of Juba, the Sud Institute, ourselves, make sure we drive this process. Nobody else is going to help us. And we write, we do things. Yeah, there will be disagreement here and there, but good disagreement. The question of approaches. How do we help our best? And for myself, because there are some people who used to oppose in the South from my own constituency, I say, don't quarrel with me anymore. I'm not going to run for election. I'm not a job seeker anymore, political job seeking. But I want to leave this place for my children in a conducive environment, and we can do it. What will I tell John Garang when I meet him? That I left the place in chaos? No. And that's why I'm still around. Yeah. We will push things, and this country is going to be great again. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you very much.
And look around, and I'm agreeing with you. Looking around, you see people are struggling, amending their constitutions. Leaders would even when constitutions are so clear that you can go for 2 terms. And then there always a struggle that, no, this one want to come, what can he do other than what I've done, or I'm doing? So it's a disease that is all over Africa. And if you take the liberation movements in Africa, who would say we are the custodian of the legacy that we have managed to bring about? You know, yeah, that also is there, that the revolution, Fidel Castro, he continued for how long? In power, until he got sick and all that. There's always this psychology and feeling that if you get away out of this, doing this, it will collapse, it will not work. But then the age is coming and you don't know, you don't feel it, that you are getting older and older. I think for the young people in this country, South Sudan, to come up, you be patient and let us build institutions, viable political institutions, through which power can move, to which young people can come up through them. If you don't have viable political parties, now, SPLM now, somebody mentioned before, why people, SPLM has the legacy of the struggle. And if you were one of them, you wouldn't like it to just throw it like that. You see? You say, no, who is this one who doesn't subscribe to the vision for which we fought and struggled? But if you have the political parties, the young people will get into those political parties, and we build democratic institutions, political institutions, through which people can have a democratic contest for power. And that will depend on how how active you are in those institutions. But there is nothing I mean, Peter Biar was talking about the youth getting organized, and people are beginning to feel threatened about this organization. That is the way to go. You must make yourself felt and your presence seen, you know. So I think that is one way by which young people would want to come and take over, through the normal democratic process and using institutions for that matter. And as you know, our struggle now has been to build viable political parties, which some of them are called briefcase parties, because they have not gone down to build from the base, come up. SPLM has got this thing from the struggle, and everybody say, oh, this is the whole party we know. So I think I agree with you that if you don't want to change will actually can take you off. You know, people who don't want to change, but we must change. Change is inevitable. Nobody can stop it. As to constitutions, the John Luke Constitution, which he has messed up, you know, constitutional documents, always they have a history. The constitution we came up with had a history in the CPA, and also in the way Sudan was and the constitutional development in Sudan. Because we came to change existing constitution, the 1998 constitution of Sudan, which was very Islamic, and then the CPA, which was written in a more legalistic way, also provided material for our constitution. And when we were moving towards our independence, you remember that the voting, when we finished with the referendum, we were set up into a committee, a commission, to look into, to review the existing interim constitution, the one we did in 2005, which was a sub-national constitution, because there was a national government there. And when we came to this one, thank you, okay, I will be just short. There was that factor of time. And because we are independent, we have to really have a constitution. In terms of the consultation, nationwide consultation, I would admit it was not done, but we had a commission of 54 people, a good number of lawyers and others, political scientists and so forth. And we worked on that constitution. But most importantly to know is that constitutions are not self-executing alone. The human factor is very important. You can have the best drafted constitution containing all the basic rights, like this constitution we have today. The Bill of Rights, if you compare it with other constitutions, it's the best Bill of Rights, comprehensive, you know. But it is application. Sometimes it's a problem. I mean, the human factor. So sometimes I take responsibility for that because I was the chair, but I think, to be fair, people should know that there is no perfect constitution in the world. That's why they are amended.
Because we were in 3 days workshop with the JMAC and UNDP, discussing this agreement. We women, we are really confused, even the citizen of South Sudan. I'm asking you, our leaders, you have many agreements without implementation, as you have put it. And you are here because of people. Do you think that those people are finished? Because if you are here for people, you should have to bring your children to the country. To let them be here in this country, you will stop war. My question is this. First of all, I want to thank our friends and partner, AU and TRICA, because they accept women voice in the agreement. That is why we hear women block. Mine is this, revitalization of agreement. Even the agreement is still not implemented. Yesterday, we went through agreement. I'm asking you, did you read agreement, all of you? To chapter, article to article, and then to leave agreement to accept revitalization? In Tigono, chapter 1, we have 3 leaders, president, first vice president, and vice president. It is there in article. In the buttons of any leader among them, the party will sit and appoint the leader. Did you see that? I'm asking our partners, AU, you were the one with us in the negotiation, and you know if the vacancies fulfilled by other members of the party up to the end of agreement. But now you are insist to call our former chairperson, Chair Vice President Riek Machar. Is it to come and solve the problem of South Sudan, this revitalization?
Thank you, Maria.
Okay.
We have more questions.
It is extremely important at this time of our history for all South Sudanese to be very sensitive to all the people. Our chair here, he asked the gentlemen in this room to applaud the speakers. He did it twice, and I'm not sure that anybody recognized that he did that. Chairperson, please try to be sensitive when you're dealing with people. I want us to realize that less than 5% of the South Sudanese population throughout the history of all our lives have been making decisions on our behalf. No more than 5%. whether they're political leaders or military leaders or religious leaders. The majority of those people have not been women. Women and young people in our society have not been consulted, and we see where we are. It is interesting as we do the analysis. This is not a matter of blaming, it's a matter of the reality. Are those 5% or less, are they capable to take us out of the inhuman situation that we find ourselves in? We are not saying that if women were the ones who formed that 5%, that the situation would have been different. But we're saying that it is time, we're talking about inclusivity. And what I hear people here saying, what I hear people in IGAD and the AU and the Troika saying, is that that inclusivity includes only that 5% of warring individuals who have been bringing us down. So that inclusivity, I ask all of us to try to understand that inclusivity does not necessarily mean represent individuals from the 74 different ethnic groups participating, speaking, being seen. It means that the resources of the nation will be equally distributed to whoever it is who happen to be our leaders. I think that as long as we continue to have sustained poverty of the nature we have in South Sudan, violence will continue. Our young men will continue to murder themselves, and they will get the support of their mothers, because poverty breeds violence. The gentleman told us, if you're hungry for 3 days, you fight. And it's a hungry nation. So I just want us to look at the situation in a very holistic term and try not to go to this revitalization or reunification or the where we are redistributing political and military positions to the same 5% who have not proved that they can get the other 95% anywhere. Thank you.
I'm keen into the area of agility versus a failing state. For me, I have a different definition or a different way of observing into the issues of South Sudan. South Sudan is a nation, I define it that it's a nation born out of violence, a nation that emerged with multiple enemies. I remember it very well when we lifted our flag at the United Nations, which is on July 14, 2011. Ban Ki-moon said, South Sudan is a nation born with blessings, a nation that nobody objected its birth. So with that, there are a lot of expectations. So when we go back to the idea that we are a nation that has emerged with a lot of enemies, it led us to the situation where we are. We have colonial enemies, we have enemies from where we have come, and we can spend days also talking about this. I hope this will be also a topic so that we know what are we really wrestling with as a new nation. With the birth of South Sudan with multiple enemies, now we are caught up in a situation that a nation that cannot move ahead because we have violence. Honorable Paulina put it rightly that violence is linked to poverty. And given that we have the immense of resources, as you can see that like my frustration, I'm looking for words. We have immense resources. However, given this center of the world that we are born in, where the world, each country looks into their interests. So when each nation, this might be an assumption, also need to be studied so that we put in some facts. Other countries look into South Sudan, what do I have in it? Is South Sudan a threat to me? And this is where we are now. Then going back to the imposition of the ACRES, yes, it was imposed because our reservations from both sides, the opposition and the government, were not taken into context. So I hope the revitalization will be more keen to look into really what is the solution that South Sudanese want. We have traditional ways of peace models. I hope those will be taken into context. And I also want to tell IGAD Plus that you have moral obligation towards South Sudan. And that also extends to the friends of South Sudan who helped it gain its independence, that you have moral obligation. If South Sudan is in the situation it is now, it is not the making only of the South Sudanese, but we are here together, and I hope that we'll emerge out of it together. I will stop here and look forward for other forums. Thank you.
Or will it make South Sudan worse again? This is a question all of us are asking, because the question of saying that it is not going to be there is already out. It is already accepted. And the consultation have been going on. Discussion is going to start soon in Addis Ababa. Therefore, it is us to contribute to what will make it great again, as Dr. Lal put it. From the private sector point of view, I want the revitalized agreement to be more focused on private sector development than the public sector that has become rigid, suffering from rigidity culture. So investment, revenue collection, trade, promotion of trade, should be more made vivid in the agreement so that services drive peace. You know, you cannot have, as Michael put it, it is actually the service that feeds us. So the agreement should be more leaned to the delivery of services, infrastructure development, how to take care of our revenue, and how to promote investment. That is one. Number two, the African Union. How are you going to take care of the overriding regional interests? Because the same IGAD countries are the launchpad for rebellion. The same IGAD countries are the ones that support different groups to destabilize South Sudan. How will African Union reign over these scrupulous group members of these countries that actually want us to continue in war? To all of us and to Dr. Lual as well, why is it that even the national dialogue does not include justice? When reconciliation and healing without justice has never been successful anywhere. Why is it that, why are we fearing from justice? Then the last one, Dr. Breng, is the role of UNMISS in this process. I will suggest that the revitalized agreement should look at disarmament. UNMISS plus RPF should be their mandate should include disarming the populations. Otherwise, chasing around water around in town here is not a good mandate. Thank you.
I didn't ask for that, but since I have the privilege, I will use it very, very quickly. First of all, to say how interested I've been by the discussions that have been presented to us this morning, in particular this of Dr. Lual, and I found it very interesting to hearing you making this assessment that South Sudan was born a fragile state. I've been sharing this opinion for quite a while now, and I think that that should be taken into consideration by all of us. First, us from the international community, that we must have that into mind, that South Sudan is to be helped. And second, it has to be taken into consideration by you South Sudanese to measure the magnitude of the effort that you have to make to overcome your difficulties. One of the things that might make things even more difficult if South Sudanese people are still in the mind that considering that everything was easy for them and that they missed something. No, things were difficult from the beginning, are still difficult, and that it is in this process that they shouldn't be discouraged from not having success so far to achieving their goals, but they should continue because the gap to fill was immense since the beginning. So that's the first message. Second, very quickly, if I can allow me to disagree with you, I disagreed on your last point about the period of the end of the transitional period. My personal assessment is that August or October 2018 is too early because at the end of the transitional period you have to organize election, and for plenty of reasons, including practical reasons, it seems very premature, I would say overly optimistic to consider that something should be possible in 2018. I would stop there. About the revitalization forum, I mean that might look a little bit obvious to say that, but it's the new game in town. It's a good opportunity given to South Sudanese to talk to themselves. Those who will be invited to participate, and apparently, according to what we've been told by our colleagues from IGAD, there's a large panel of representatives of South Sudan society and South Sudan political leaders, and we really hope and encourage them to discuss as far as possible, because that is really the right moment to solve. Well, there is no right moment. The best moment to solve the problems is now. The second best moment is tomorrow, and the third best moment is the day after tomorrow, and so on. But definitely the best moment is now. There is a big opportunity with the support of the international community. So let's hope that this opportunity will be seized. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm here on behalf of USAID, and I would say, first of all, that I agree that there's a tremendous amount of resources going into humanitarian assistance, and that once the fighting stops, that provides tremendous opportunity that exists. It would reinforce tremendous opportunity that exists here in South Sudan. I think that the United States is very interested in seeing peace and prosperity in South Sudan, and we would certainly like to be partners with South Sudan over a long period of time to support inclusive development. And I think that a part of what that we're happy to see today, these discussions in a very public forum. This is a very important part of that, and we're very pleased to be able to come today and observe and participate. Thank you very much.
Dr. Lual Lachek, who has always not shied away from confronting issues from way back until the CP up to now, is still on it. And I think that must be respected and appreciated. Although the accusations that the topic is not topical, because we should be discussing the report of the revitalization forum, that isn't the issue. We're still analyzing issues that are relevant that will also be incorporated. We must also give thanks to the high table for a robust rejoined contribution in this. Shall we give all of them a clap?